Hello and welcome back. And thanks to all those new subscribers that have signed up to the channel. It really makes it worthwhile for me to keep doing these videos. So we've had a little bit of a break over Christmas and now we're into 2025. It's time to have a look at some of the new features in Lightroom and Camera RAW. And in particular, in this video, we're going to take a look at the difference between profiles and presets and how we can use these to work together to create a slightly different or improved look for your photographs. So let's dive in and take a look. So here we are in Lightroom in the Develop module, and this is where we find the options for profiles and presets. And if we look at the Develop panel, we look at the Basic section. At the very top we'll see here a section called Profiles, and most of us will have never touch this, and there are many options available here. And this is where the initial translation of the image from the raw file to a viewable image takes place, and the profile applies some different settings to give you the initial look of the image. And then when we come to talk about presets, these are over on the left hand side, and we'll come back to these shortly. But firstly, let's take a look at the various options for profile. And by default you'll most likely be looking at Adobe Color as the profile. And this image we're looking at is a capture untreated, unprocessed from the camera, and you'll see that it's a fairly flat image. We're not overexposed, we're not underexposed, but it's a fairly flat and boring landscape image because it was photographed in the rain and mist, and we need to make it look a little bit more interesting. So the best way to look at the different profile options is to click on the grid view box over on the right hand side, and this opens up a series of preview boxes. And what we do is if we hover our mouse over any of these different profiles, we'll see the difference in how the image will look. So if I go to the monochrome option, obviously it takes the color away and we're looking at a monochrome image. Now in this case I'm not interested in making it monochrome, I want to boost the colors somewhat. So if I scroll down and look at the Adobe landscape, and as I hover over it you'll see in the middle of the preview there it tells me that it's Adobe Landscape, and the difference between Adobe Color and Adobe Landscape, there's quite a boost in the color and contrast, but still a little bit bland. We can come over to Adobe Portrait, but that's pretty ordinary, not really suitable for what we want. Adobe Standard, but Adobe Vivid gives us a much better starting off point. And just remember, this is not a processing step, this is just how the original view is rendered, so it's a starting off point. And then further down from all of these profiles we've got some other raw profiles, we've got some camera matching profiles. Most of these are fairly ordinary, although landscape version 2 is not bad, I must say. So let's have a look at that initially, and if we come down and hover over some other ones, there are quite a lot of really strange options here. A pseudo cyanotype. We've got like a one called Dream, which is more of a nightmare than a dream. And we've got all sorts of very unusual ones. There's a sepia one here that if you wanted to make a sepia tone photograph, this could be a place to start from. But I think a lot of these ones are not much use. Let's just go back and stick with this landscape version 2. That's a really good starting off point. So before we've done any changes to the settings on the image, we've got a much better starting off point. So that's the point of the profiles. And then once we've selected our profile, we could look at some presets. And some of these presets, again, are quite strange and weird. And often you'll probably do a better job just using your own processing settings. But we'll have a look at those next. So we've set a profile to start our processing from using this Camera Landscape version 2 option, and that's certainly given us a slightly improved version to start working on. So from here on we could start to adjust various settings as we would normally do. But in this case, let's have a look at the presets, because once we've established our basic profile, we could have a look at the options for presets. Now, of course, you can create your own user presets, and there are many people on the internet who will try and sell you some presets, and most of those really are not worth buying. But what we have here is the built-in presets. Now, there's a whole bunch here. We don't want Well, let's have a look at adaptive sky, because our sky is pretty bland. Now, if I just hover again over these different settings, that's my default setting that we've started with. I could go, blue drama, yeah, that's not too bad. I could use that. And so there's all sorts of various different presets that'll give a different look, and this, in this case, just really looking at the sky. But let's not go there just yet. Let's come down here and look at the color options, because I think I'd like to see a lot more color intensity in the image. So let's just have a look at vivid here for a minute. That looks pretty good. Matte, vivid, okay. Natural, no. All right, let's go with vivid. So if I select one of these presets, you'll see now, looking over in the right hand panel, all those presets are doing is applying some adjustments that somebody, in this case Adobe, has created to give us a slightly different look. And if I go back up now to look at my sky, adaptive sky, and I like the blue drama look, it will replace those settings with a slightly different look. So the presets can be useful as a starting off point again, but in nearly every photograph you're going to need to make your own adjustments. So there is some value in using presets, and there's certainly value in using different profiles, but there's no substitute for actually applying your own settings to each individual image to get the look that you really want. And then, let's say, for instance, I would like a little bit more texture in the image. I can use these presets to start off with and then really work the image from there. And you'll see that in some instances it's going to apply some fairly strong contrast. But again, these are all just starting off points. They're not the final end point for your image. And next we're going to take a look at one feature that's now available in Camera RAW that's not yet made its way into Lightroom. So let's have a look at the option of some adaptive presets in Camera RAW. So in Camera RAW there is now an adaptive preset available, and it's not yet available in Lightroom, although I expect it will do sometime down the track. So to have a look at how that would work, let's go back to in our history panel, back to when we applied that Camera Standard version 2 option, so that we're not mixing up our processing. So this is the image just with that color profile applied and no other presets. So to take this in, to be able to edit in Camera RAW, let's select the Edit In option, but rather than just say Edit in Adobe Photoshop, we're going to come down and convert it to a smart object in Photoshop, and then that will allow us to access the Camera RAW filter. So here it is with that standard version 2 landscape profile applied, and to access Camera RAW we just double click on the thumbnail and it will take us back into the Camera RAW settings. And as you can see, there are no changes being made. I've not applied any other settings. We've just got the Camera Standard version 2. And so let's have a quick look at this adaptive beta, and if we just click on that, you'll see that it will take a few seconds, but it generates quite a different look. It's added a bit more contrast, it's brought out a bit more color in the background, and if I just go back to our standard version 2, there's what we had previously, and now we have the adaptive beta. So that's certainly worthwhile having a look at, and in some cases it's going to do a better job, and in some cases perhaps not. But then, of course, then we could go, while we're in the Camera RAW filter, we can play around with our various settings that we might have applied and go from there. So the adaptive preset is only available in Camera RAW at this moment in time, but we can access it by going into Photoshop with a smart object. So finally, let's just have a quick look at how we can create our own presets, because that's something that's probably more worthwhile. So here we are back in Lightroom, and I've gone back to the version that I just created, that profile camera landscape version 2. But let's, to make things quite simple, let's just go back all the way and reset that entirely so that there's back to the Adobe Color settings. And let's say we want to create our own preset. Well, I've already applied some processing on this image here. Looking at it now, I might be gone a little bit strong on some of the colors here, but let's just use this as the basis to create a preset. because if I have some fairly soft landscapes in the future, I might want to use this as a starting off point. So what I would be doing firstly is, with these settings applied, I would say let's go into create a new preset, and we want to create a preset, and I'm going to call this grey landscape so I know what it's going to be. And because I'm going to put it right at the top of all of my presets, I'm going to just call it a grey landscape. And here we have the options that we can choose, and you can say check none or check all, and there's a few things that we would apply. Now I'm not going to apply the sharpening and noise reduction because, as you know, Lightroom's noise reduction and sharpening is pretty poor, and I use another program for that. But certainly lens corrections, any transformations, curves, basic treatment, profile, color mixer, all of those things, yes, I want to create those within this preset. So all I do now is create that preset, and that's there ready to go, and I can use that on any landscape from here on in. So that's the previous processed version. Here's the one that I've just reset to the basic settings, and let's go through user presets. Here's my grey landscape. I just click on that once and those settings are applied. So that's how simple it is to create your own user presets, and I think quite honestly most of the time your settings are going to be better than purchasing presets from other people, because they may or may not work for your photographs and your style of photography. So best to stick with what you know and use your own settings. So I hope that's all been useful. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.